Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. As always, had a Friday day, very chill, and in this video, I want to talk about just dispel some of the beliefs again. I mean, it's the same process. It's always the same process. Um, but I think that I have few insights that may help you to learn faster, because that is possible. Because you can learn through blind trial and error, which is a very long way, but you can also learn through sort of like a targeted trial error, where you can borrow somebody else's experience and say, all right, so what you got for so far? Oh, that's what you got so far? Okay, let me investigate if this is true. But I want to talk about specifically about this myth that reality is your reflection. This myth that, like, oh, we're all one, we're supposed to be friends with each other. All of us on this planet must be, you know, like in unison and kumbayaing away. This is not how it works. This is not how this reality has been designed. It is not your reflection. It's just a bunch of lies that they keep on spilling, you know? And you gotta watch the people who are saying, you see. It's easy for somebody to say that who's sort of like, brainwashed a group of people believing that he's a saint and whatnot, and sitting on his ass in the fucking diapers, you know, telling that reality is your reflection or whatever, I'm just talking. But reality does not work like that. This physical reality has a specific type of layer called matrix and whatnot that is specifically designed to be the opposite of what you are in order to challenge you. Okay? Now, the correct way of using this is to see everything that happens um, through the matrix as a um, calibration for what you're really all about and what you desire the most. This is what it helps you to find what you are, the contrast. Okay, so it is designed this way. So it has to contrast for you to be able to find who you truly are. You see, so it is not your reflection. So that myth is busted. It's not true. It doesn't work like that. Um, there is a way to sort of like, if something happens in the matrix and you're getting challenged and whatnot, you say, and you look at it as, okay, is this helping me to find out what I want the most or more, right? And you may be looking at some evil people or doing some evil stuff, and some people who are like backstab, what I'm trying to say, like all this betrayal and all that stuff. And you're like, why would anybody do this? You can't understand it. You can't possibly understand it because you're not functioning from that mode of being. You're not functioning in the matrix. And when you function in the matrix, then you not only get to understand it, but you likely to do this as well. So you see, the name of the game is to be not to be part of the matrix, to be in this world but not of this world. And the only way to do this, if you there's a specific part of you touching the infinite. Okay, it's not renunciation of life. It is not um, negation of life. It's not saying like, oh, fuck it, all the world is fucked up, so there's no point. It's not like that. It is a recognition that the more the matrix pushes you, the more into infinite you go. The more you rely upon your imagination, the more you rely on direct experience of feelings without external impulse or input, um, And so little by little, like this, it seeps into the reality, and you do have these, what you may call miracles. A miracle isn't a trick, it's not a magician's trick, that, or or like turning water into wine and all that stuff. Okay. um a miracle is simply your soul's desire, not ego tantrum, but soul's desire coming true. And you get to see this like little flower among the pile of manure, or the pile of coal or whatever. And then when it comes, it's so special, it's precious, diamond in the rough and whatnot. And so for this to be special and so precious, it has to be in the background of, you know and so this is the best that we can do, and bring these manifestations of love as much as possible. And despite that, the world could be dark and everybody's losing their fucking minds, but you still bring something in life that is just meaningful and precious, and it, it, you see, like, it's not an entertainment, it's not popular, but it's something that you and maybe someone else, or maybe it's just you seeing that coming true. And that is the most wonderful feeling, that you recognize that something real is coming through, you know who's not supposed to, but it's there. Like, even if it comes from the person that normally is just completely uh, like, asleep in the matrix, but for that moment something magical comes through, and it's like, wow, that's something real shining through that person. And so just appreciate that moment. Don't think that that's the person now suddenly, awaken or whatever. No, it's just in that moment is your manifestations coming through, and delivering to you that little gift. But the mistake is to assume that now that it's about that person, and that person now is, no. You the person is back in the matrix, and they don't even remember. That's what I've realized. If you take a people out of the matrix for a little bit in this little bubble of love, and then you go back in the matrix, they don't remember. It's weird. And has been observed, that there seems to have that people just wake up for a little bit and then fall back to sleep. And I'm not saying this like in a judgmental way. This is um what happens naturally, unless you are deliberately playing with your attention to remain in that infinity, where there is peace and bliss, and always. And it's not that you're like now like apathetic to the world. Yes, you are nonchalant, means that you are not really uh, part of it, right? You cannot be moved by it. Not to but it doesn't mean that you are not having kind of, excuse me, not to say that you don't have the emotions, but the emotions that you're having is, they're dissolving emotions. They are not you engaged in the emotion and acting that shit out, right? It is the opposite. It is just like you feeling it dissolve, which is usually just um uh if feeling that emotion dissolving, it usually just makes you tear up and whatnot. And that's a correct way of living. Like sometimes what people call emotional, we have to be also careful because emotion can go this way in the matrix, or it can go the other way and be in the process of dissolving. Just like I said, is usually crying is accompanied with the process of dissolving emotion, um, or laughing. This is what often happens when I do one-on-one sessions with people. They either start laughing or they start crying or both, because now the consciousness is touching infinity and the emotion is finally being expressed or dissolved as it's supposed to be. And we're supposed to cry and laugh a lot depending on what's going on. And that's the best way to process this world and still remain in the infinite, you know? And usually, you know, that's the best thing that I can come up with. And it does work and it does something even to the person that betrayed you or tried to hurt you, um, to make themselves feel better or whatever. You know, the whole Matrix thing, which, by the way, I mean, it usually, the Matrix hurts you the most through the people that are closest to you. You see, like your rivals, at least in my life, I never had the problems with my rivals. Even if they play kind of dirty, um, there was always this respect for the game, for the opponent, and I've never felt this type of, anger or rage for my competition. It was always healthy. And, sometimes you get like annoyed and pissed off because they do something that is, they're playing dirty. If nobody likes somebody breaking the rules, of the game. But sometimes people do. But what is the worst is the people that are closest to you, or you designated them to be the closest to your heart. That's the people that will, um, betray you the most. This is the type of betrayal that really enrages you and really angers you, because that's the highest form of evil, and the highest form of evil comes through the closest people to you. And the highest form of evil to me is, um, to abuse the most innocent, which is the most trusting, is the highest form of evil. Right? If somebody is innocent, is completely relying on you and is trusting, which is not weakness, it's love actually. And somebody betrays that, it's very, very, uh, it's the most evil thing to do. You may say, well, that person may have been like sort of gullible, but let me say something about this. I was watching, in this universal love, this infinity, this, alchemy and theurgy, to alchemize all of those. It's fantastic. It's great. You get your life back with it, and it's amazing. But it is not this type of love. You see what I'm trying to say? It is a type of universal love. It's compassion and all these. It's very important. But there is this another type of love, okay, which requires something for you to even feel that feeling, and requires you to have a risk, or not even a risk. It requires you to be very vulnerable but trusting with somebody, and somebody else the same way with you, that you trust them not to be moved by the matrix. I mean, now with experience, you get to know that, like, oh, you can't trust just anybody. Not everybody deserves your heart. Only the warriors, only the people who, you know, fight for love. But there's that preciousness there. There's that innocence there. That's like, hey, you can hurt me. You can destroy me if you want. You know. Um, there's something about me that in that moment, so like, hey, like if it's a man or a woman, it's like, hey, here's my heart, basically. Okay, you can destroy me, right? And I built my heart of diamond, through going through hell and whatnot, right? But you can steal that from me, you see. But I trust you that you won't. And the reason you trust is that the person has the capacity to um, be immune to the matrix and be able to navigate, right? But if the person does betray you, um, it's it will hurt, but you will know, of course, how to handle it because you have experience with the alchemy and theurgy, and you won't be suffering for too long. But the hurt will be there if a person does that to you. Um, and so this is why there's always going to be a risk to really loving somebody. And then only then there is this another beautiful feeling that arises, that is not this peace, that is not this bliss, um, as wonderful as these fundamental feelings are. There's something else that arises that is super super magical and super super fragile, you know and that type of the innocent type of love, but that's the only true love is comes through innocence, you see, which, by the way, only then you have a real confidence. And there's a degree of how much you can open up to someone, and I think obviously you have to adequately um, open up adequately to each person depending on their level of consciousness. That happens naturally through wisdom, you see. And the most incredible feeling, um, or like I should say, the more that that love feeling for one another grows as the trust grows. And ultimately there's not going to be a lot of people who can be so trustworthy, meaning if there's like this attack that is coming, the psyop attack or whatever, psychic attack or whatever, and all these thoughts and all these negative feelings bubbling up, you know um, to betray that person, you see. But if you don't, the thought may come in, is like, oh, that person is gonna betray you anyway, so why don't you just betray him first? Because if they're gonna betray you, then you're gonna get hurt. But you just betray him now or her, and so you're gonna get that pleasure, and you're gonna put them in pain. So let's just do that then, right? Like if you succumb to this, you have to be say like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna betray, because I would be betraying my own soul. Even if that person does end up betraying me, I'll handle it. You see, and so you have to be really fighting for love. And if you do somehow, if you're fighting for love, another person is more encouraged to also fight for love. And but you gotta keep on fighting. This matrix thing will always try to inject and always try to separate love. The more innocent, the more pure, the more truthful it is, the more trusting it is, the more it will try to destroy it. I've seen it happen, like friends to come in and they make a few suggestions, that person is like this, and the person is now doubting, and I've seen it exactly, precisely of how it work, how these psyops work to break people apart. Um, you know, but I chose to go through pain. I said, "Fuck it, betray me." You know, I'm not going to betray you. I'm not gonna engage in revenge. I'm not gonna, pacify my pain with some another hedonistic. I'm just not gonna do it. And eventually, there's gonna be somebody who's, or, you know, it is happening. I have, you know, the circle of friends that are like that. That they're fighters, they're warriors, and they're fighting for love. And they're going through challenges and they know how to handle it. None of us are immune to this. We're all going through these challenges, but at least it's being handled correctly in the right way, and there's an interest to how to handle it. Um, there's an observation of all these negative feelings popping up, and you see what I'm trying to say? And there's willingness to go through it. It's rough sometimes, but you gotta go through it. And so you see how love has nothing to do with this world of dating, or sometimes I hear people call sexual marketplace. The most disgusting name, but it does define what it is. It's just lust-based thing. It's nothing to do with love. And when you have relationships between men and women, there's nothing to do with love. What do you expect, you know, to be? And you see, like, up to this point, everything depends on you. Up to this point, you are responsible for the alchemy, for theurgy, for all of these things that are necessary to navigate this life. And it's wonderful. But what you'll find, which is also quite natural, is that you don't want to, you know, play this game of life by yourself. There's going to be desire that is like, hey, I don't want it to be all dependent on me. There's things that are dependent on me, I'll take care of it. But I don't want everything to be dependent on me, because if everything depends on me, then like I'm even in supposed to be, responsible for, let's say, my partner. You know, maybe that's not a good word, but my uh, my mate, also not a good word. my lover, my girlfriend, my wife, whatever. So, and so you can play your part, but if you are responsible for them also, and then they don't have this inclination of understanding of, you know, fighting for love, this concept of fighting for love, then you're going to feel alone. You can be powerful. You can make your partner do whatever you need to do with magic, but this is not love. You'll still be alone because there's, you see what I'm trying to say? There's going to be this need or desire to meet somebody or to be with somebody who's just like you, who's co creating reality with you, but not 100% depending on you to be, you know, to be like a, um, you see what I'm trying to say? And that will allow you to trust somebody. And that weight that you're not supposed to carry is going to be gone. The rest of the thing, what you're supposed to carry, you carry. But that particular thing, you're not supposed to be carrying. You're supposed to be sharing with somebody else who's just like you. But it has to be just like you. And I said, I mean, they say that there are, and I observe to be the case, that there are these hyalic, pneumatic, and psychic souls. There are these seemingly three levels that of what level of the game they're playing, and you know it's possible for somebody to graduate from one to another, but it's an incredible event. It's super rare, and it's a celebration for somebody to graduate from one. And usually there's lots of experiences going in one level before you graduate. So if you are one of those, you can't meet or be with somebody who's not like that. If you're a pneumatic soul and you're an alchemical soul, and all first, you're the first responders of all the shit that negative shit that's going on energetically comes to you first, then you cannot expect somebody who's not like you to understand what is happening, even. You see? And reality is definitely not a kumbaya, like what people saying, and it's just this is a psyop too. They say that the hippie movement was also engineered, and it is. I think it is true because it's very weak movement. It didn't do anything. It didn't change the society, but just kind of created escapist form of escapism. And honestly, like everything that I look at right now, I realize that everything is a waste of time unless uh, you make the change in the law that is conducive to harmonious way of life and enforce it. That's the first. And of course, the whole system needs to be reframed. I mean, that's the work basically. On one side, as I call it, external discipline. And if you don't have these rules, regulations, and laws that are not corrupt, not bureaucratic, but it's dealing exactly what it is, it's just guarding the principles and leaving the rest to be resolved on a smaller scale level. There is absolutely a structure, is a holistic government structure or protectorate that you say, holistic protectorate structure that exists and functions and it works. And so, not if it's not being done to move in this direction, it is wasted energy. Okay, and this is what the system is trying to resist: is to be resist to be revamped into a new system that is corruption reducing or corruption resistant. Okay, that's one side. That's not enough. And another side is the alchemical side. It is the alchemical work. You see, it is because when you do the alchemical work, it's you go into society, you do the alchemical work, dissolve these thought bubbles that makes people do crazy ass shit. And so there's another thing because the culture is changing because people don't believe in that shit anymore. Because that's another type of law. There's this law of the brain and the behavior of how people behave according to the programming, right? And then there's a law of society of the government, which is another type of program of that could be possibly physically enforced. So the program is what's important, this external and internal, and that's the highest point of leverage that you can do, and nothing else is worth it, and is a completely waste of time. And I realized that, and I was like, okay, so I'm not gonna waste energy on trying to convince somebody on a superficial level that that is so, which is usually what happens in these talking, and stuff like that. That means nothing. And if it's enjoyable, like I derive enjoyment from storytelling and sharing stories. It can be super fun and whatever, but it's just for the sake of enjoyment, not for the improvement of the society. What improves society is, like I said, those very tangible things. It is technically the physical programming and the astral programming. That's what needs to be changed. And it takes time, but you do it. And I don't want to focus on anything else. Because if I look at how people are behaving and what they're doing and how corrupt they are, and it pisses me off, and then what I'm going to go there and teach them, this is not at the right direction. I say, okay, well, it's the programming. It is the programming of the culture, the programming of the laws that led that person to be this way. Okay? Then I focus on the programming. It just showed me my desire of what I want to do, and obviously showed me what works, you know? Um, yes, like the law is supposed to be enforced if somebody is, um, like treated unfairly, abused, and stuff like that. Sometimes you can't do it. Like, for example, like if you trust somebody too much, then there is no way for you to even hold them accountable because there was just too much trust. And so you got to be, you have to avoid those. But if there is a possibility of creating any kind of repercussions, you have to create those repercussions. You see, like the law of society must function. People cannot just steal, people cannot just lie. That must be functioning. And it must be functioning on the smallest level. Like, if the parenting failed, then the society must take over. And if the parenting failed, and produced a corrupt man, then that corrupt man will end up in jail. And the parenting fails is because it's a programming, is one type of programming, you see, that was not correct. So, anyways, everything is about the programming. Everything's about destroying and dissolving belief systems, not creating another one, not changing one belief system to another, destroying all of them. But there is a framework that is there when all the belief systems, or when the belief systems are gone. It's not that, yeah, how to say, it's just complete anarchy. So it's not like that. There is a order that is elegant, and it can only be, like I said, The system supposed to be where the system belongs, and it only takes care of the principles. The rest of it is supposed to be between humans. See, it's between humans, and through. But I don't know. I don't think even it's between humans. Humans are gonna do whatever in whatever ambient they are. I really start seeing this way. It's like that. I don't put any responsibility on the human. On the people. I see them that they just you put in one environment and that's how they behave. They really like animals, and I'm not just you know demeaning. I'm just being very accurate of what is really going on. And if you create a society where there's lots of uh, organizing principle up in the air, orgon, then everybody's going to be organized. They won't have a need to revenge and things like that, because there's going to be a lot of sanity and health within that group. So there you go. So that's what it's all about. It's not about blaming people. It's about changing the ambient in which people are, and that is a type of honestly energy. And so that's the way it is done. And because to tell you something, these original Maya civilizations or even Aztec civilizations, or and this mind blowing capacity for them to produce these structures that we still don't have this technology here. They are researching that, but it's obviously with the already clear realization that these are non-terrestrial civilizations, that they were seeded, right? One second. There, I put the charge in here. Up in here. Um, so yeah, these civilizations were seeded. Joe Rogan is super fascinated with that stuff, and his curiosity keeps on unraveling. And this is basically when he has guests that are about that, who are actually proficient at it, and the real guests and real researchers, not the ones that just like, hey, I also want to talk about it, but my my knowledge is limited with what you read in the books or whatever. But the people who write books, who investigate, who research, and put two and two together. And so, of course, it's been put two and two together because these were not non-terrestrial civilizations. Um, by the way, not a coincidence that civilization, Maya civilization, and there is a star in the Pleiades called Maya as well. Um, anyway, there's just like a lot of theories out there, but the fact is that those were not built by these people, you see, who are here now, or who were here then. Like, I mean, these were just tribes that just came in and found it, and that's what they are obviously realizing. I realized that long time ago. And so this sacrifices that Maya were doing, and it's like and Aztecs that they were doing, and when conquistadors came over here, they saw like, oh my God, this is some dark ass shit. What are you doing, right? And killing own people for gods, and you see the delusion. It's matrix, 100% matrix. It's not holistic. And original civilizations, they were holistic. They knew the blueprint of holistic society, and they were building them. Okay, and so they were not these tribal people. There might have been these tribal primitive people over there, but They were not part of those civilizations originally. They may have like interbred later. I don't know about this, but these are not. These are definitely not the same people. Um, I'm here where the Maya civilization was thriving in this, and I can tell you this: the people that you think they're Maya, these local people here that you think that they're Maya who lived um, for thousands of years uh, after the original Maya civilization, please, they these are absolutely and I had this image, this reverence or reverence. I don't know what to call it. Like, oh, these are Maya people. Like they built the pyramids. They have like they must have been like wise and all that stuff. And what I found out was so disappointing. They have no idea what they're doing. They're doing this is a tradition and stuff like that. Okay, do you know what you're doing? They don't know what they're doing. There's so many other things. I wish I could say something positive about these people, but I'm sorry, I cannot find anything positive. These are not original Maya people. These are very, very primitive. They still are very primitive. I don't know how long it's going to take for these people to become more and more reasonable, with the exception of few pockets where people were still keeping fire, keeping that sacred fire, with exception. But these were not. These were not the people. These are not the people. I can guarantee you. And I went to the villages and I met them and I talked to them and I really was trying to be like a you know um, with respect, thinking that like, oh, they have the capacity to live sustainably. They are more, they're connected with nature. They're scared of nature. They don't treat animals with respect. Very, very low level of consciousness. And I projected so much onto them just because they have that magical history. But it has nothing to do with them. And I think Joe Rogan is right that these are just tribal people came in, saw like, oh, this is a really cool shit, cool pyramids. Let's just settle here. But intellectual, like intelligently, they have nothing to do with the original. And they created something else. They created this corrupt culture, which required sacrifices and believing in all sorts of gods and you know what happened. And it's still part of these people. These are very dark people. Okay, that is my honest observation. And if things are changing, it's definitely not because of them. They're tribal level people. This is why they're still, you know, um, uh, into this organized crime. But it's not even organized. It's just crime. It's just tribes. And so now, US and corporations, and of course US doing it their own thing, before they sabotaged, um, sort of like, these southern countries. So then now they can come in with their corporations and just take over, and because it's expansion of economy, business, stuff like that. This corporate type of government, right? It has its own ugly things, um, but it is better than this wild west, you know, because with the corporate government like that, you can still at least um, find justice. You know, like for example, overall, like United States system with all these corruptions and everything like that, you still can just at least have a chance of find justice because there's still a vestige of this original intent of creating something holistic, and there's some justice shining through there. Um, but the programming that they were doing, and I don't know why they would do this on their own people. You would think that they would want your own people to thrive, to grow, but no. And of course, that's not what is the government. The government is not. Um, it is not by the people. By I'm talking about. No, I'm not talking about these local people, but not by the real human beings, not by wisdom. So I honestly have to say that, I mean, it was the most challenging thing for me to come here and live here. Um, the energies and the alchemy, yeah, it's great for the alchemy. You, I mean, if you really want to challenge yourself in alchemy, then yeah, come here and live for a year or two. Maybe right now it's not the same as it was, but it's you still will feel it. You'll still feel it, that toxicity that you're gonna have to alchemize. So yeah, alchemy is the reason that I came here. But it's my idea to create a sustainable village and working with local people. It is not going to happen. Um, and now I'm looking at to um, create like the science and art campus and working with highly civilized, conscious people only, not even the workers. I also want even the just labor to be the labor of love, not the labor of money. That's what I've learned, that it's not these people. It's not the original Maya people. And the closest thing that you can create in this awesome, beautiful, holistic village is only with the people like that. But these are souls. They could be all over the world. These are multicultural thing because we're connected based on something else besides the race, but we're this type of soul. It's a holistic type of soul, and it's only for these types of souls, and this is what I realized to be the case. And for the big portion of my life, I was living in like a research campus, or nearby research campus, uh, where people are like highly educated, scientists and artists, high level, and it's amazing. like it's a different world. It is different world, like because people can handle you know life internally and externally, and there's something about that. And I know that there is this reputation of scientists being corrupt, and yes, there are corrupt scientists, but very few. And they're not usually at these research campuses. Usually these people are very um there's not a lot of ego there. There's, I don't know, something about science and art that just checks for ego. If you're talking about the real scientist, real curiosity, it checks for the ego. And that's my kind of people. That's where I thrive the most. That's where I was valued the most. And honestly, I miss it. And maybe I could create a little institute here, a little campus, research campus um, here. We'll see what's going to be here, but it's definitely not going to be what I thought it's going to be. You have to keep the maximum distance from, because you look like you can't mix. There are indeed levels of consciousness. Okay, yes, the that 0 point and that infinity is one, but not everybody is connected with. Very few people are connected or remain connected with. It's a fact. Okay, and you can be connected to it and be in the process of growing up as in a certain level of consciousness. You're growing as a soul. There are levels to it on a soul level, and there are levels to it on an ego level. So there could be like super egotistical person or less egotistical person, and then you pop on the other side, and then there's you know like I say, like the baby god, toddler god, and then adolescent god, and then the adult god. There's that level there too. But it's also nobody argues with their level. It's like, oh, this is where I am right now, and this is the most enjoyment I get from it, and I don't want to be the elder of the village. So let somebody else to be the elder of the village because they have the capacity. They have this different level of wisdom than I do, and it's cool. But there is such thing. There is absolutely such thing, and not only there is such thing, you're supposed to really have this clear. That I think I can imagine society to like they don't judge by the color, don't judge by the race, don't judge by any of these things, but judge by the quality of consciousness. Right now, it can only be picked up by people who are sensitive to that, and you see and say like, okay, I can see the level of consciousness of this person. But if it could be some sort of like uncorruptible system where that could be visible more clearly to many more people, I think the society would be very uh, more humane, because it would be like, okay, that's the level of consciousness, no judgment, but this is where they are, so this is how we have to treat them so they don't damage other people or themselves. So right, so this is how it's supposed to be. And because sometimes like some incredible soul may be born in a family that is just living in the dark ages. it's it happens all the time. But right now it's time for these holistic souls to get together based on their level of consciousness. Not they have this idea that's like, oh, we have to help everybody and everybody's equal. Eh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can experience everybody as just one thing, in your field of experience. And if you connect with that infinity, everything to you is there's no discrimination because you're enjoying everything. This is what's really going on. You're just enjoying everything, and you don't even see in a deeper level. You see, but if you are building a project or working on something, whatever, you have to look in deeper and see like, okay, that's the level of consciousness here, that's the level of consciousness here, and this is not compatible, and you have to be wise about that. You cannot mix it. You cannot bring like the really high level of consciousness people then really low level of consciousness people who low level of consciousness, low skill set, and then high level of consciousness, high skill set, and you bring them together and you want them to work together. It's not going to work. And so, I mean, I'm speaking from experience because I thought that everybody is supposed to, no, it just doesn't work like that. It needs to be um, sectioned according. You see. So there, so that's gonna be it for today, guys. Um, that's just the truth, and I miss doing science. I miss running a nice business, and and the biggest regret that I have is working with local people here. I'm sorry, I'm not even saying this like to criticize it. I'm just saying this is the fact. This is how it is. People do change, but they do change very slowly, and it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Um, this is why the infrastructure is important, and and it's a cool place. The nature is incredible. The nature is incredible. There's like about 2,000 species of orchids in this jungle alone. And you go there, and every time you see this is different, and you can see how they're like um, seemingly playing, like beautiful shapes and forms and everything. It's obviously not for the sake of survival or adaptation, but just for the sake of beauty. And so this is why it attracts these holistic souls from all over the world because of the nature here. But local people, they it's the people who come here and work really hard to preserve it. Local people don't give a fuck. I wish it was different. And if you find somebody who does, then they have some sort of, you know, connection or some sort of upbringing. There's something different about them, so they can care about it, and genuinely want to preserve it. And they do work in universities, and there are people like that. They're strongly connected with United States, and there are movements to take care and preserve and stuff like that. And of course, this other side of it, where it's just like fucking cut through it, build useless bridge for the useless train that nobody uses without any kind of necessity or a need, because there was no traffic jams. It is not. It's not that there's anything wrong with the regular traffic, or that it's overcrowded or too much. And spend billions that they will never get back. You see, like decisions like that. All we have to do is because, like, oh, Japan is doing so. We have to do it too. But you don't have population here to bring people from one side to another. Oh no, let's just do it because it just looks good. Let's destroy this habitat over here. And let's just do it. You know the shit. You know the score. So I have to say something. This is not their planet. Originally, this planet was seeded by highly developed civilizations. And whatever this thing is now that is happening is not that. And so it feels like this it's occupied by a wrong type of entities, but not the original entities who knew how to live on the planet like this. Whatever has been occupying this earth for I don't know how many thousands of years, it is not the beings who know how to live on the planet. The beings who abuse it for the resources. And honestly, I look at this as that like, oh, we're not gonna have fun here until we take our planet back. This is not even about one country, not Mexico, US, or whatever. No, it's about taking the entire fucking planet back. I don't know how this is gonna look like, but there's gonna have to be the layers of cultures based on the on development of consciousness, and those most primitive people are gonna have to live in primitive ways. You don't put the primitive person in responsible, see what I'm trying to say, or something crucial. And if you try to make it too different than what it is, then you get really upset, because then what you do, you expect something from a person that it doesn't have a capacity to. The person has low level consciousness, low skill set, and it's like, hey, why don't you do better? Why you don't you think, don't you see what you're doing is destroying yourself? It's like, oof, you're wasting energy. This is what I've wasted so much energy on this thing. It's like it's okay to admit that there are levels of development. You know, we're not equal. We're not equal, and there's forget about kumbaya. And if you do this, then there's the most harmonic way to do it, because you don't expect from somebody more than they're capable of. So then you don't have to be upset about it or be angry or be in a war or fighting or stuff like that. Yeah, this is what you do. This is what happens. You know, it's a programmed behavior. It's an animalistic type of behavior. And you got to be careful. This mixing is so bad because you may have people who are infiltrating places that's supposed to be sacred and whatnot, or groups that supposed. You see what I'm trying to say? But they have very low level of consciousness, and then high level of intellect and manipulation, and then you have something like these fucking insta gurus and stuff like that, just abusing people. So you cannot mix it. You gotta beware. You cannot let society should not let somebody just jump above their navel. And because it does so, you have to be very careful. Just because, for example, environment that you tend to harbor high consciousness people, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna find a few rotten eggs in there. But the reason there these rotten eggs over there is because these other people false tolerance. It's because they go like, oh no, but we're all equal. Let's just be more kind. It's okay. No, it's not okay. This is a type of toxic feminine attitude. But you say no, it's not okay. This person is completely fucking toxic. It doesn't belong here. Out. Or they change the behavior, which then they need to be disciplined. So take this, as a piece of advice. Um, there's no need for having like this emotional judgment to it. And actually, that emotional judgment goes away when you start seeing for what it is and you don't ask for people to be more evolved than they are. Everything is in its right place. And then you at least organize your own life and say, okay, now that person does not match here. That person does not match here. Okay, this seems to be a good collaboration here. This is, and you got to be very careful because some people may say like, oh no, let's just let this person in. Sometimes I see like a group of friends, like I used to hang out with a group of friends, and then one of us would just bring a person that's just completely out of the vibe and out of like this empathy, not a compassion, but out of empathy. And you bring the person that is like completely toxic, ridiculous, uh, drug riddled and stuff like that, and then I would be like, what the fuck are you doing? This guy has nothing to do with us, you know. um no, not for this setting. It's just that person has just lives in a completely different world. So no, you can't do that. Maybe in some settings it's okay to hang out, like whenever you in some setting where everybody is welcome, sure, fine. But when you have a choice to create your group, friends and stuff like that, you don't do this like that. You you don't trust your instincts, trust your gut feeling, and just and trust me on this. Like, especially if you're running business or some organization, and you have people that gelling really well, and then if you just have like a bit of like a lapse of consciousness and you bring somebody else that doesn't, they will ruin everything. It's what happened to me. And just because somebody is related to you does not mean that they deserve this thing in the company. And or whatever you see what I'm trying to say. Like, the message of this video is about basically recognizing the quality of consciousness of each individual and treating them appropriately, don't not asking anything more than that. Okay. And of course that the reality is not your mirror, and it doesn't work like that. And to be honest, The only thing that I see that is going to be cool is this holistic souls must come together, and they cannot include just regular matrix people. You cannot have that. It's just not going to work. But part of the society, you work in the government, or work on changing the laws. You work on There's a lot of work to do to create a framework that is healthy. But that group of people that is doing that work, it's it's supposed to be a team, and not supposed to include anybody that is not like that. This whole, like eugenics thing and a superior race kind of thing, okay, that's, of course, it's a bullshit, because you cannot really measure the quality of consciousness. It's not a race thing. But there is truth in there, because there is a quality of consciousness thing, which you can trust. And in that case, um, you do want people in charge of the systems who are like that. And they're supposed to hang out with their own people. It's just the way it is. Like I said, you still have to go into the people for the alchemical reasons and whatever, and socialize with everybody, but not as a friend circle setting, not as a collaboration works, not as, you see. And this will uh, go long distance and make you into like a normal, healthy, sane human that recognizes the quality of consciousness of everybody, and not get caught with the pants down because there was just like a false empathy or all these other things. But at the same time, it does not make you into a racist or a bigot or anything like that. It's a quality of consciousness. That's supposed to be a measure, right? Because you cannot escape it. You cannot hide it. This is the thing with the strength. Like, you cannot. You can pretend that you're strong, but when you actually need to fight, for example, and you are fighting, then that fight will show the level of your force, the level of your strength. You can't fake that stuff, right? You got to be real deal. So same thing here. Now, of course, this type of approaches um, would put everybody in the right place, and some people who don't belong in certain places, and they're there. I don't know. We'll see. Like, like I would like this to be part of general consensus of the world, quality of consciousness of each human being. Because like sometimes I see people come in, I feel their energy, right? Because if you connect it to the source, you can feel their energy. And as soon as I see them, and I know they can act really good, they can show, like they can have all these techniques, and they can talk very soothing and quietly, and they can do all sorts of fucking things. I immediately fucking feel, you motherfucker. I can see the fucking demon in disguise. You know? And like, I don't like when these these popular podcasts like Joe Rogan and stuff, like, bring people like that. I didn't like it, like, again, in Theo Vaughn, how he was bringing people like that. I understand, like, you gotta hang out with everybody and talk with everybody, but not giving the light like that. I don't know. No, a certain level has to be, certain standard has to be there. But again, these are not my podcasts, so people can do whatever they want to do. All right, guys, we'll leave it at this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.